The Battle of Abu Klea, 1885, Britain's last stand in the Bayuda Desert. The Battle of Abu Klea, also known as the Battle of Abu Clea, was one of the most dramatic clashes of the Sudan Campaign. It took place between 16 and 18 January 1885 in the unforgiving Bayuda Desert of Sudan during the Gordon Relief Expedition. Here, just 1,400 British soldiers of the Desert Column faced nearly 14,000 warriors of the Mahdist army in a fight that lasted only 15 minutes, but became legendary in British military history. For the British, Abu Clea represented both bravery and tragedy, a desperate attempt to rescue General Charles George Gordon, besieged in Khartoum by the Mahdists. Yet the outcome was bittersweet. For while the square of red-coated soldiers held firm, the relief expedition would ultimately arrive too late. Background: the Gordon Relief Expedition. By the early 1880s, Sudan had risen in revolt under Muhammad Ahmed bin Abdallah, the self-proclaimed Mahdi. His movement, fueled by religious fervor and anti-colonial resistance, quickly overwhelmed Egyptian and British-supported forces. In 1883, an entire army under General Hicks was annihilated at El Obeid. By 1884, the Mahdists had encircled Khartoum, where General Charles George Gordon, one of the most admired officers of the Victorian age, commanded the garrison. Britain's Prime Minister William Gladstone initially resisted intervention, but public pressure and the Queen herself pushed for action. Thus began the Gordon Relief Expedition, led by General Sir Garnet Wolseley. His strategy was two-pronged. One, the river column, advancing along the Nile with steamers and boats. Two, the desert column, a faster strike force crossing the Bayuda Desert, commanded by Major General Sir Herbert Stewart, aiming to reach Khartoum before it was too late. It was Stewart's desert column that would face the Mahdists at Abu Clea. The march across the desert. On 30 December 1884, Stewart's desert column, numbering around 1,400 men, departed from Korti. This force was unique, built around the Camel Corps, a hybrid unit designed for rapid desert mobility. Its composition included camel regiments, heavy camel, guards camel, light camel, mounted infantry camel, the 1st Battalion Royal Sussex Regiment, the Royal Marines Light Infantry, the Royal Naval Brigade with the brand new Gardner machine gun, the 19th Hussars, the only traditional cavalry, light artillery, 4 field guns. They carried limited supplies, and water was the most precious resource. Every step toward Khartoum was a race against time. By mid-January, Stewart's men reached Abu Clea, where crucial wells lay ahead. But in the surrounding desert, tens of thousands of Mahdist warriors waited. The Battle of Abu Klea, the eve of battle. On the night of 16 January 1885, Stewart halted near a wadi by Abu Clea. The British formed a zariba, a temporary defensive camp, but throughout the night they endured sniping fire from Mahdist riflemen. Forming the square. At dawn on 17 January, Stewart ordered the march to the wells. The column formed the famous infantry square, a tried and tested formation to repel mass attacks. The artillery took the front. The Royal Naval Brigade and their Gardner gun held the left rear corner. The camels were herded inside for protection. Despite sniping and rough terrain, the square advanced steadily. Then, from the wadi, a wave of Mahdist warriors charged forward with cries of Allahu Akbar. The breach. thousands of Mahdists slammed into the square. At first, volleys of disciplined British rifle fire tore great gaps in their ranks. But at the left rear, disaster struck. The Gardner gun jammed after just 70 rounds. Sand had clogged its mechanism. In the confusion, a gap opened, and Mahdist warriors surged into the square. Fighting became hand-to-hand. Spears, swords, and bayonets clashed in a brutal melee. Amid the chaos, Colonel Frederick Gustavus Burnaby, one of Britain's most famous soldiers, was speared through the throat and killed, his death becoming legend back home. Yet, discipline prevailed. British infantry wheeled and fired volleys into the Mahdists who had broken through. With bayonets and rifle butts, they forced the intruders back out. Within 15 minutes, the battle was over. Casualties. The cost was heavy. British 9 officers and 65 men killed, over 100 wounded. Mahdists around 1,100 killed in just a quarter of an hour. Among the fallen was Musa Wad Helu, one of the Mahdist chiefs. The British square had held, but at terrible cost. Aftermath. The Desert Column pushed onward to Medina, fighting again at Abu Klea on 19 January, where Stuart was mortally wounded. Command passed to Brigadier General Charles Wilson, an inexperienced officer. Delays proved fatal. By the time Wilson's small flotilla of steamers reached Khartoum on 28 January, the city had already fallen 2 days earlier. Gordon was dead, killed in the final assault, his body desecrated by the Mahdists. For Britain, the relief expedition had failed. Public anger erupted at home, with Gladstone vilified as the murderer of Gordon. Even Queen Victoria publicly criticized his government. Legacy. The Battle of Abu Klea remains etched in British memory as 1. A rare case of a British square nearly broken in the 19th century. 2. A symbol of heroism, particularly in the death of Burnaby. 3. A lesson in the limits of technology, the Gardner gun failing in the desert. 4. A tragic prelude to Gordon's death and the fall of Khartoum. Britain would eventually return to Sudan in 1898 when Lord Kitchener crushed the Mahdist state at the Battle of Omdurman. But for over a decade, the Mahdi and his successors ruled Sudan, their greatest victory secured in the shadow of Abu Klea. And that's the story of the Battle of Abu Klea, 1885. A short, bloody, and unforgettable clash in the sands of Sudan. A story of courage, tragedy, and one of the last great British squares in battle. If you enjoyed this deep dive into military history, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. And tell me in the comments, do you think the Gordon Relief Expedition could have saved Khartoum if it had moved faster? See you in the next video, history fans.